I was the only one who didn't ask my parents for money. When they died, I thought maybe that meant they finally respected me. Instead, the will said, "You don't need anything. This is for your siblings to survive." I took a deep breath. Then I took the trust to court and revealed my brother's hidden gambling debts, my sister's secret bankruptcy, and the 2 mortgages they'd lied about. The judge froze the assets. Now they all survive on nothing. I'm 38 now. I've lived in Milwaukee for the past 10 years. I rent a small studio on the south side and I work in logistics. Nothing fancy, but I've always had enough to pay my bills and save a little every month. I don't drink much. Don't travel. No kids. I don't ask for help because I learned a long time ago no one was going to give it. I have a brother, Rick, and a sister, Danny. We grew up in Kenosha in the same house my parents bought back in the 80s. Our dad worked for the city and Mom was a nurse. Growing up, it felt like Rick and Danny got to be kids while I had to be the adult. Rick was always the favorite. He was 2 years older than me and had that kind of smile that made people forget he just lied to their face. He got into trouble constantly. Fights at school, wrecked our dad's truck once when he was drunk at 17, but my parents always brushed it off. "He's just figuring things out," my mom would say. "He needs support, not judgment," Dad would tell me. Danny was the baby. The artistic soul. Sensitive. Quiet. Never finished anything she started, but always had a reason. Dropped out of community college because it was too rigid. Quit her job at a bookstore because the manager had bad energy. They gave her everything. Paid off her car. Helped her with rent. Bought her a new laptop when hers just stopped working. Me? I worked 2 part-time jobs starting at 16. Stocked shelves at Walgreens and washed dishes at a diner. I bought my own used car at 19. Paid for my own cell phone. When I went to a technical college for a logistics certification, I took out a loan and paid it off by the time I was 26. I never asked them for anything, and they never offered. Sometimes I'd hear them talk about how strong I was. "We never have to worry about you," my mom said one Thanksgiving. That stuck with me, because the truth was, I didn't think they worried about me at all. Years went by. I kept my distance. Visited on holidays. Showed up with a pie or a 6-pack. Listened to Danny talk about her freelance projects. Nodded while Rick bragged about his real estate consulting business that I knew was barely scraping by. Then, 2 years ago, my dad died of a stroke. He was 69. It was sudden. I handled the funeral because Rick said he was too overwhelmed, and Danny said she couldn't deal with the stress. I took 2 weeks off work. Called the funeral home. Got the flowers. Picked the casket. They showed up on the day of the service and acted like they planned the whole thing. My mom died 11 months later. Cancer. She kept it quiet until it was too late for treatment. I didn't even find out until she was in hospice. Rick and Danny were helping her, which mostly meant staying in the house and eating food she couldn't keep down. When she passed, it was the same routine. I cleaned out the house, called the relatives, took care of the cremation, made a slideshow for the memorial. My siblings just kept saying how hard it was for them emotionally. I didn't cry much. I didn't have anything left. A few weeks later, we got called to the lawyer's office. It was the same guy who'd handled some stuff for my dad before. Real dry type, glasses too big for his face. Rick showed up late. Danny was already sniffling into a tissue. The lawyer opened a thick folder. "Your parents left a detailed will and trust," he said. I sat up straight. "To our beloved children," he began. Rick got $300,000 and full ownership of the house. Danny got $250,000 in a trust and the contents of Mom's safety deposit box. Then came my name. To our son, who has always been self-sufficient, I felt a lump in my throat. "We are proud of your strength. You don't need anything. This is for your siblings to survive." That was it. No share of the estate. No family heirloom. Not even a damn photo. I didn't say a word. Just stood up, nodded once, and walked out. I didn't even look at them. I sat in my car for almost an hour, just staring out the windshield. At first, I felt empty. Then the rage hit me like a punch in the chest. I gave them my time. My silence. My distance. I took care of everything when they were too lazy or too emotional to lift a finger. And they left me nothing because I didn't beg? They thought I didn't need anything? Well, I was about to show them how much they really needed. I hired a lawyer. A good one out of Milwaukee. Her name was Rachel. She didn't sugarcoat anything. Contesting a will in Wisconsin is hard, she told me. But if we can prove mismanagement or undue influence, we can get the court to pause everything. I nodded. I don't want their money, I said. I want the truth to be on the record. We started digging. The first thing I learned was that Rick was drowning. His business was a front. He had 3 personal credit cards maxed out. Over $90,000 total. And he'd taken out a second mortgage on the family house my parents never knew about. Over $120,000. Most of it went to sports betting and casinos across the border in Illinois. Danny wasn't much better. She'd filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in 2018. Never told anyone. I found court records and contacted her old landlord she left in the middle of the night with 2 months unpaid rent. Then came the worst part. Danny had taken out personal loans using my mom's name. I found the accounts. My mom's credit was destroyed by the time she passed, and she never mentioned it. I gave everything to Rachel. Emails, text messages, financial statements. I even got a forensic accountant to go through the trust and show how much of the estate had been given to Rick and Danny while my parents were still alive. The numbers were staggering. Over $380,000 had been handed out over the last 10 years. Unrecorded. Untaxed. Gone. Rachel filed a motion. We went to court in the spring. I'll never forget the look on Rick's face when he saw the file we brought in. Thick. Color-coded. With receipts. Danny cried through most of it. Said she didn't know it was that serious. Claimed she was just trying to get by. The judge listened quietly. Then said 7 words I'll remember forever. I'm freezing all trust assets immediately. Everything stopped. The house? Put in probate. The accounts? Locked. The inheritance? Untouchable. My siblings? Furious. You destroyed us, Rick said after the hearing. No, I said. You did that all by yourself. The fallout came fast. Rick tried to act like he still had control, like he could fix everything if the court just gave him time. But without access to the estate money, he was exposed. The mortgage lender came knocking. Turns out he hadn't made a payment on the second loan in months. The house, our childhood home, was now under threat of foreclosure. Danny wasn't much better. She tried to move into the house without telling the court. Just showed up one weekend and started living there, claiming squatter's rights because it was her childhood bedroom. She posted about it online. Some pity post about being forced out of her home by a greedy sibling. Big mistake. Rachel sent that post straight to the judge. The court sent an order for immediate removal. Sheriff's deputies showed up 2 days later and escorted her out. She cried on the front lawn. A neighbor filmed it. The video made it onto Facebook. People started asking questions. Old friends, family members, even church people who used to call her Sweet Danny. Rick blamed me. Danny blamed the courts. But neither of them could hide anymore. Then came the part one didn't expect. I started getting phone calls. From people I hadn't heard from in years. My Uncle Paul from Racine. Cousins I barely knew. Even one of my dad's old coworkers. Why are you doing this to your brother and sister? They're family. Your parents would be ashamed. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. Because deep down, they didn't really want the truth. They just wanted things quiet again. But it wasn't going to be quiet. Not anymore. Rachel found more. Turns out Rick forged my dad's signature on one of the HELOC documents. It was sloppy, but it was there. The signature date didn't match up with Dad's hospital records. He was under sedation that entire week after a minor surgery. That wasn't just a lie. That was fraud. Rachel filed a criminal referral. When Rick found out, he completely lost it. Showed up at my apartment banging on the door at midnight. You want me in jail? Is that it? That's what this is about. I didn't open the door. He stood out there yelling for 15 minutes. Slurring. Crying. Then silence. Next morning I saw the damage. He'd kicked in my mailbox and shattered the side mirror on my car. I called the cops. Filed a report. Added it to the growing pile of court documents. Weeks passed. The case dragged on. Rick's lawyer tried to argue he was emotionally unstable after the death of our parents. Tried to get him sympathy. Danny wrote a letter to the judge saying she had nowhere else to go and that I was trying to destroy her livelihood. Claimed the trust was the only thing keeping her from being homeless. Rachel didn't even blink. She submitted every receipt, every transfer, every piece of evidence showing that Danny had already gotten more than her share, and that she was still hiding a private checking account with over $30,000 in it. It was money she got by selling some of Mom's jewelry that was never legally released from the estate. Rachel called it theft. The judge called it a gross violation of trust. Now Danny was under investigation too. At that point, I thought maybe things would slow down, that maybe they'd give up and accept what they'd done. But then I got a letter in the mail. It was from Rick's attorney. He was filing a motion accusing me of coercing our parents in their final days. Said I isolated them and pressured them to write him out of part of the will. He was trying to flip the narrative. Said I had poisoned their minds. Rachel laughed when she read it. Desperate move, she said. But we'll squash it. Still, it hit me hard. After all this time, after everything I'd stayed quiet about, they were still trying to make me the villain. So I made one more move. I asked Rachel if we could get full financial control of the estate through an emergency hearing. She filed it the next day. If we won, it meant I'd be the one calling the shots on every dollar, every asset, every debt. Rick and Danny would have to ask me for approval. They laughed when they heard. You think a judge is going to hand that power to you? Rick said. But I knew something he didn't. Rachel had just found out something else. Something that could ruin him for good. Rick's business wasn't just failing. It never existed. Rachel pulled property records and tax filings. Turns out the so-called consulting firm he'd bragged about for years was a fake. No business license. No filed taxes. The EIN number he used on loan documents? Stolen from a dissolved LLC that went under back in 2016. That was wire fraud. And federal. Rachel didn't waste time. She sent the findings to the district attorney's office. 2 weeks later, Rick got served at his girlfriend's apartment. His girlfriend, who, until that moment, didn't know about any of this. I guess he told her he inherited a house and was just waiting on paperwork. She kicked him out that night. He slept in his car for 3 days before trying to stay at Danny's place. She let him crash there for one night before posting about how she was being dragged into his mess. I screenshotted the post. Sent it to Rachel. At this point, Danny tried to backpedal. Reached out to me through an email. I think we should all just sit down and talk this through like adults. We're still family. Let's not let money tear us apart. Funny how they always want to talk when they start losing. The emergency hearing came quick. The courtroom was packed. Rick showed up in a wrinkled suit, Danny with oversized sunglasses trying to hide her face. Rachel stood up and laid everything out. The forged documents. The fraudulent business. The unreported loans. The misuse of estate funds. The jewelry theft. The threats. The broken mailbox. The midnight screaming. Then she presented the final piece. A recorded voicemail Rick had left for Danny 2 weeks prior. He didn't know she saved it. She gave it to Rachel out of spite, probably hoping to shift some blame. In the message, Rick admitted everything. They're gonna find out. I already told Mom I'd pay it back. But it's too late. The money's gone. I just need that house. Once I sell it, I can square up. I can't let him take it from me. He thought he was being strategic. The judge heard desperation. Rachel turned to the bench. Your Honor, we're not here because of greed. We're here because my client was written off for being responsible. The other beneficiaries lied, stole, and manipulated their way into a larger share of the estate. And now they're facing the consequences. Then she paused. We're asking that he be named the financial executor of the estate, so that finally this mess can be cleaned up properly. The room went silent. The judge looked tired. She leaned forward and rubbed her temples. Then looked at me. Is that what you want? She asked. You really want to manage all of this? I said one word, yes. She nodded slowly. Motion granted. Rick cursed under his breath. Danny let out a high-pitched whimper. It was done. That night, I didn't celebrate. I sat at my desk in my small apartment, opened a notebook, and made a list. Item by item, I wrote down everything they owed. Every dollar. Every lie. They took my silence as weakness. Now they'd have to ask permission to spend a single cent of the estate they tried to steal. And I wasn't done. The first thing I did as executor was freeze all personal spending from the trust. No more weekly checks. No more estate-paid utilities. No more emergency withdrawals. Rick tried to push back, claimed he needed money for a lawyer. I denied it. You can sell that Rolex you bought with Mom's money, I told him. Or you can use your public defender. Danny emailed me a week later, begging to release funds to pay for a new apartment deposit. Just the first month, she wrote. You can even take it from my share. I replied, the trust is under audit. Try Goodwill or a friend. A few days later, she went online again, posting vague messages about family betrayal and toxic control. I didn't respond, but I printed them and sent copies to the court for the records. 6 months in, the audits were done. What they found sealed everything. Rick had been skimming from the trust for years while pretending to help manage it after Dad died. Over $62,000 was missing, used for vacations, bar tabs, even a week-long Vegas trip right after Dad's funeral. He used one of the estate's cards, said it was a business scouting trip. The court hit him with criminal charges, fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. He took a plea deal. 2 years probation, 6 months house arrest, and mandatory restitution. But since the house wasn't his anymore, he had to move out. Danny? Her part was worse. The court found she forged my mother's signature twice on personal loans. She'd signed for $40,000 total, none of which was repaid. She claimed it was for art supplies and rent, but the financial trail showed high-end makeup, concert tickets, and a lease on a luxury car she didn't even drive, just posted pictures of online. She got probation too, but with a felony on her record. And that $30,000 she tried to hide? Seized by the court and added back to the estate. Now here's where I messed up. I'd been so focused on exposing them that I didn't realize how much of my life I'd thrown into the fight. My job performance slipped. I missed meetings, stopped checking in. My manager called me in one Friday. We know you're dealing with family stuff, he said, but we need you here, mentally. 2 weeks later, I was laid off. Company-wide cuts. I didn't even get a call from HR, just an email saying my access was cut. I spent the next 3 months living off savings, trying to finish up the estate work. But when the estate closed, I didn't feel proud. I felt empty. The trust was split evenly after the court's final ruling. Everything rebalanced based on debts, damages, and court orders. I kept none of the money. I refused my share. I just wanted the truth written down and locked into public record. I wanted them stripped of the fantasy they'd lived in for so long. Rick lives in an old duplex now. Works odd jobs. Can't get a business loan to save his life. Danny moved in with a friend in Sheboygan. She started selling crystals and energy healing sessions online. They still hate me. They probably always will. But when people ask why I did it, I tell them the truth because I was the only one who didn't ask for anything. And in the end, I was the only one who didn't lose everything.